Hello and welcome to ChinnyVision. I feel the need for... I'm so sorry. If you bought budget games in the mid to late 80s, then Mastertronic probably dominated your purchasing. And I remember buying SpeedZone, again one Friday evening, and this keeps cropping up in these reviews, but I did buy most of my games on a Friday evening because that's when I got my pocket money and could visit the newsagents. And I picked up SpeedZone for $1.99 on the Mastertronic label. It was a flippy game, which was also appealing because at that time I also had a 48K Spectrum that actually didn't work properly. But in any case, the idea of having a Spectrum and Amstrad version on one tape had appeal. And hey, this was a shoot 'em up, and I couldn't remember the last time I bought a really good shoot 'em up on budget. So loading this up on my CPC 6128, can't find my original tape, it's in storage somewhere, so just loading up a disc version of this. So it's SpeedZone, developed by PAL Developments by Clockwise. So PAL Developments were, of course, became high-tech, didn't they? Or part of high-tech, doing all the Hanna-Barbera games. So presumably PAL outsourced this to Clockwise. So we have this two-colour menu screen here. Here we go, we get the name of the programmer, Keith Goodyear. Ready to go, and off we go. Right, so nice mode naught graphics here on the Amstrad, a little bit chunky, but off we go. First thing that strikes me is the programmer can't spell shield. I before E, except after C. So got 3 lives and a shield spelt incorrectly, and the shield depletes and eventually you lose a life. And these baddies flit around the screen incredibly fast, spawning from all sorts of different directions. They are incredibly poorly defined. You will have seen when we loaded this game up, it is 13K in size. And some of those type-in games that I reviewed on the Amstrad a few weeks ago for the 6128 retrospective were bigger than this. Lost a life. And yeah, it's pretty rubbish. On to level 2, you'd be hoping there might be big end of level baddies, but no, after a predetermined amount of time, you go straight on to the next level. We've got a trademark infringing TARDIS on the top right hand side there. That's a difference between the levels, you get a different object on the screen. It seems to be hit or miss whether you hit the baddies or not. They move around so fast. It's pretty terrible. There's very little skill involved in the game. As I say, the baddies move around so incredibly quickly. You can't even really memorise the patterns they approach on because they're so fast. And when you pause the video and look at the state of the graphics, they're terribly defined. When I reviewed Zub a few months ago, I pointed out on the Spectrum version of Zub there's a built-in game that's hidden called Lightfast, that binary design programmed in an afternoon. And Lightfast is considerably better than SpeedZone. That's right, a free game that's a hidden extra in a $2.99 budget game, programmed in half a day, is considerably more competent than the game we're playing now. We're on level 3, and again the graphics change and that's the space station on the left hand side. Losing my shield now, I've lost my life. And yes, this is all there is to the game. There are no big end of level baddies. Eventually it just loops over and you start getting the same objects on the screen again as you've seen already. It's absolutely terrible. Moving over to the Spectrum, which I think is the original version of the game, the menu screen looks the same as the Amstrad version. There's weird buzzing on the music, and it's not mains hum. I've checked that for some reason. It just is a noise there. Again, 1988 PAL Developments, released in 1989 by Mastertronic. Same coders again. Perhaps Clockwise. I don't know who Clockwise Software are in relation to this compared to PAL Developments. I'm just not sure. These graphics are quite attractive here on the Spectrum, nicely defined. Again, it's... oh no, see the baddies. Once it starts, it begins to look ridiculous. You see all those colours when you initially see the start screen. You think, oh, the spacecraft is nice and large and colourful, and then it starts to move, and it's just as terrible as the Amstrad version. If this was a budget game in 1984, 1985, you could probably forgive it. This is 1989. You could buy so many better games from 1989 than this. Werewolves of London came out the same year for the same price on the same label as this rubbish. Werewolves of London will give you hours and hours of gameplay. SpeedZone, you've seen it all in 30 seconds really. It's absolutely terrible. And look at this, when you cross over the background objects there, your craft completely blends in to the background, so that object is just annoying rather than aesthetic. Over to the Atari 8-bit. Oh, speed's nicer here on the Atari. Oh, this is better. This is better. You've actually got a chance of aiming at and hitting the bad guys. Your spacecraft is completely different size, presumably to take advantage of the Atari's sprites. It's still terrible, of course, and it is still repetitive and exactly the same thing as the Spectrum and Amstrad version. 9 level baddies, and the game loops over eventually. But at least it's slower and a little bit more playable. You can have limited fun trying to rack up the highest score on the Atari. On the Spectrum and Amstrad version, you've got no chance. And on to level 2. What we're going to get on level 2 in the corner? It's a TARDIS again. Now I'm afraid this, again, if there's any hope of this being any good on the Atari, well, it's better than the Spectrum and Amstrad versions, but that's saying a punch in the stomach is better than a kick in the teeth. Over to the C64. Slightly more attractive menu screen here with these bouncing, are they planets? I don't know. Up and down, a few more colours, and very nice. I do like that high-res font and the colours of how it kind of phases, across the screen. Graphics are by the same guy, and yeah, that's a little bit nicer. Oh no, you see, you go and do all that, and then you've got that mess on the top right-hand side of the screen. It's supposed to be a TARDIS, and oh, it's horrifically fast again. It's horrible, and this game's about 18K, and the Spectrum version is about that as well. This game it's like something from 5 or 6 years before. On the Spectrum, you could shave off a few K of the code, and it would run on a Spectrum for 16K. That's level 2. Level 2 already. This is terrible. It's absolutely diabolical. I was hoping that one of these versions might be better. It might have been the original version on the Spectrum, but no, they are all equally bad. There's so little to say about this because there's nothing to show. Why kettles and V-shapes and all these funny things? They're not even aliens. What are these things? They're just graphics someone's just knocked together in a few minutes on their, I don't know, graphics design package. I don't know. But there's no coherence of the game. The game manual makes no sense whatsoever. It talks about you have to go on your mission and things like that, but there's no attempt to really sell the game at all, or it's incredibly limited. SpeedZone is a game that came out in 1989, but it feels like a game that came out on budget in 1985. It's incredibly limited. There's about 30 seconds of gameplay. Looking up the programmer of the Spectrum and Amstrad versions, Keith Goodyear, he has a history of games that aren't terribly good. Gilbert Escape from Drill, the lamentable Rick the Roadie, Penalty Soccer, and the fairly terrible port of R-Type to the Amstrad CPC that thankfully has been updated. In 1989, I felt incredibly cheated in my $1.99 because I spent money on this game. I was hoping, looking across some of these other versions, that one of them might be good. Perhaps the Atari version might be good, the C64 version might be good. They're all absolutely terrible. On the Spectrum, it's too fast and there's no gameplay there at all. The Amstrad version is a little bit slower. There's still nothing there. The Atari version is actually vaguely playable, but still, it's just shoot at some random baddies and try and rack up the high score, and there's no end of level baddies or anything like that. There's no thought or design has gone into this game. It just seems to be something that's literally been thrown together to put out on budget. There's no excuse for a game like this in 1989, not even on budget. Don't give me the stuff about inexperienced programmers or anything like that. These guys had done other games. Mastertronic knew what they were doing and knew what they were putting up. Someone must have looked at this and went, it's only a budget game, we don't really care anymore. Now we've got the Sega Master System, we're just going to throw this stuff out. SpeedZone is an absolutely lamentable game, an absolutely awful piece of code. $1.99, it was a rip-off. Don't even waste your bandwidth downloading this utter tat.